Hi, and welcome to The Bright Balloon, a podcast where I'm sharing bright ideas for your balloon business. My name is Sarah Meyer, and I'm a balloon business owner like you, and I love the creative side of what I do, but I really love the business side, which seems to be the part where most people struggle. So I'm here to help. Each week, I'm bringing you an episode full of bite-sized tips you can use to make tiny improvements to your business. I want you to make more money, eliminate stress, and learn along with me as we grow our creative businesses together. Welcome to The Bright Balloon. Hello and welcome to this episode. Today I am chatting with my balloon best friend, Dennis Scott, who is a world-renowned balloon twister, but also a really, really busy decorator. He is the reason that I got involved in balloons in the first place. About 7 years ago, I was at a convention for face painters, and he was teaching very basic balloon twisting. And the rest is history. So we became friends. We live about an hour and a half away from each other. So sometimes we work together on large projects, large jobs. He has hired me, I have hired him. So it's just a great relationship to have within this industry. But what's interesting about Dennis is that, like me, he maintains a day job and then does his balloons on weekends and evenings. And in this episode, we are specifically talking about hiring help because Dennis has done it all sorts of ways. He's hired friends, he's hired family, he's hired other balloon professionals for one-off jobs, he subcontracts when he needs multiple twisters. So he just has a lot of experience hiring short-term help, not necessarily full-time employees, but in a bind when you have a big job and you need extra hands, that can also be really overwhelming. I personally don't do that very often. I don't know the best way to do that. So that is what we're talking about in this episode. And something you'll hear me also talk about is hiring a designated balloon inflator. So when we recorded this episode, this was kind of brand new for me. Since then, I have now had a woman coming to inflate my balloons every week for the last 3 weeks, and it has been life-changing. It has been a total game changer, but it's still just a little too fresh. Don't worry, I am planning an entire episode all about it, but right now she and I are still figuring out the strategy, what works best, when she comes, how she knows what to inflate. So that is coming. And another total tangent, another side note, I have gotten really into this money personality test. You might have seen me talk about it on Instagram, but I am now in the process of getting certified to be a money mindset coach. And coming soon, there is going to be additional training, courses, lots of content about this money mindset idea, because when I took this initial quiz, I came back as a ruler and an accumulator, which means that some of my sabotages mean that as a ruler, I want to do everything myself. And as an accumulator, I like to make all the money. I just save and save and save. And I'm not spending. I wasn't investing. So hiring someone to fill up balloons for me really pushed me, really challenged me in both of those areas. As the accumulator, it was like, oh, I'm spending money on someone to do something that I could do. I should just do it myself. And also as the ruler, it's like that little control freak in me was like, but how are they going to know how to inflate the balloons? And what if they don't do it right? And only I can do this. And it's like, no, calm down, Sarah. You're fine. So hiring someone to inflate balloons was really the outcome of being more in tune with these money personalities, this money mindset work that I am doing, and I'm so excited to bring that to you guys very, very soon. If anything I just said is interesting and you're like, I'd like to know more, it's not ready yet, but if you want to get on a mailing list specifically for money mindset and money personality stuff, there will be a link, just for a sign-up link in the show notes. Again, if all of a sudden you were like, I'd like to know whatever you're talking about, a little bit more about that, that's fine. There's nothing ready yet, but if you want to be on that early notification list and just kind of let me know that you're interested in that stuff, you can sign up using the link in the show notes. But again, more to come. That is very early. I'm just starting this certification process, but it's exciting for me. So I'm excited to kind of go down that rabbit hole and start bringing you some of that money mindset content on the podcast. So that is enough rambling. Let's get into this interview with Dennis after a short break. If you haven't checked out Having a Party Wholesale by now, what are you waiting for? They have all of the brands that we know and love as balloon professionals, and they even offer free shipping on orders over $200. So the next time you need balloons, make sure to check them out. You can click the link in the show notes and tell them that the Bright Balloon Podcast sent you. All right, welcome to the podcast, the one and only Dennis Scott, the man responsible for getting me started in balloons. Dennis, introduce yourself.
Hi, Sarah. My name is Dennis Scott. Thanks for having me on. Well, I'm located in Arlington Heights, Illinois, which is a suburb about 20 minutes outside of Chicago. And what I do is I do everything. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, pretty good at a lot. I started out as a restaurant performer and worked my way into a little bit more of the elaborate twisting and competitive sculpting. And then that kind of blended its way into doing some decor. And now I mostly do decor. So yeah, that's it. I pretty much do it all.
Well, and we met at a face painting convention. So I used to be a face painter. For people who don't know this story, I used to be a face painter, and I went to a face painting convention, and they were teaching like basic balloon twisting with the idea that you could do parties. You're already face painting, and then you can do these parties and add balloon twisting on. And Dennis was teaching that class. So it was you and Dustin and Connie, like a bunch of twisters and decorators, and you introduced me to Qualitex as a balloon brand. Like, I had never heard of them before. Like, I didn't know anything. So you were there at that very first convention teaching twisting, but almost right away you were like, the money is in the decor. Like, that's where the money is at.
Right. Yeah. I think by then, by that conference, I still teach twisting. I still twist a lot. I do a lot of performing birthday parties and block parties and festivals, and I still perform in restaurants, and I still do a lot of the twisting, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. But from a profitability standpoint, you will make way more money doing decor. And the benefit of the twisting is that when you add in twisting elements into the decor, it differentiates you from most of the decorators. And then also when you add the decor into the twisting, it differentiates you from most of the twisters. So it's good to kind of know it all, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
definitely way more money to be made on the decor side.
Right. But do you still like feel more satisfied from the twisting just because it is more specialized, or do you not care?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So like my roots was always twisting. I really got really into it. Gosh, this was going back probably about 25 years ago when I really fell, passionately in love with balloon art and balloon sculpture. I found a community back then. It was, there was no Facebooks and there was no YouTubes. There was one website, which was, balloonhq.com, which was a website that Larry Moss had created, and that's where all the balloon twisters gathered. And it was a social community amongst the twisters when social internet wasn't really a thing. And we all shared ideas and designs, and we had virtual jams, and then I learned about the conventions, and at that time I was performing in restaurants a couple nights a week, and just there's nothing in my brain more exuberant than standing in front of a room full of people eating, watching you make balloon art, and getting a request that you've never made before, and making it within a minute or two, and just blowing the brains of everybody around you that are watching what you do with balloons. And that's
Literally, what you just described is like my definition of hell. Twisting balloons in front of people, getting a request I've never done. Like, I literally have a stomachache picturing this. This is like a bad dream where it's like, wait, somehow I'm the balloon twister and I don't know how to make anything.
Uh, that's funny. That's funny. Now, and it is scary. Even some twisters get really scared, and I don't know. I don't even get really nervous anymore. It's just odd, but I don't get in that environment that much anymore. So when I get a chance, it seems like I twist more in restaurants and bars now when I'm not the hired artist and I'm more with like friends.
True.
I'll just bust out the balloons and it just gets weird and fun and awesome and it's just it's great. I love balloon modeling, balloon art, but you can work your butt off all weekend and not you know, make a third of what you can in a weekend doing, decor throughout the week. So
Yeah.
and that's why decor is mostly what I do now. But there's still nothing like the art of entertaining people.
Well, and you're not really tooting your own horn. Like Dennis is an award-winning balloon artist. Like I'll put some pictures on Instagram. I'll link to some stuff because like you've competed like all over. Like you've won awards. You're incredible. You're not just like this random dude who twists balloon dogs. Like you do insane stuff.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and I appreciate that. I do. I'm not one to toot my own horn, and I just love balloons for the art. And when you get to when the opportunity arises where you can do something more elaborate and awesome, it's great. But the purist in me still loves nothing more than creating something within 30 seconds that makes a child smile. It's just those little interactions that is what fills my heart. With joy with balloons. But there's definitely the side of the industry where it's fun to go out and spend 3 days on a sculpture and create something that is life changing, or puts a timestamp on your place in the balloon industry. So I love those moments also, but I feel like at my age I'm almost kind of past those days of sleeping 4 hours over 3 days just to create something to show off. I feel like I've built my portfolio and people know what I can do now. It's time to just kind of sit back and relax and enjoy the art.
Well, we were both at Balloon Wonderland. What did you think of that?
Well, I think that I need to learn how to speak Spanish.
For
That's
real.
yeah.
I'm learning. Day
Seriously.
42. I'm day 42 on Duolingo. I can talk about my husband, my wife, and bread.
Mi esposo.
Yes, this was
Me come manzanas.
it's all apples and bread.
Yeah,
Dennis and I are going to be the worst Spanish speakers ever at the next conference, but we are trying, you guys.
for sure, for sure. It was comical because I had such a great time at Balloon Wonderland, and not to take it back to the whole Spanish thing, but I think the team that you and I were on had, I would guess half the team was Spanish speaking, and I felt at a disadvantage by not being able to communicate with the team.
And they
So
all spoke English. Like I felt like a huge idiot because they all spoke English for the most part. So
yeah,
I was the one being like, "Oh gosh, yeah, definitely made the case
exactly.
for being
Yeah.
bilingual."
And really, honestly, the only reason I want to learn to speak Spanish is I secretly hope that it'll cause me to lose 40 to 50 pounds and get dark hair and look as sexy as Dante. So I feel,
Yeah, Dante in there, he's trilingual. He's got three
yeah,
languages going.
thank God for Dante because he certainly, in his ability to speak all the languages, was able to, to carry the team. So, yeah, it's good. But the build was great. It was life changing experience for sure. Working, side by side with people from all over the world, to do something that was so, spirit filled and for such a good cause. Yeah, life changing for sure. It's one of those builds you'll never forget. Made a lot of friends. Got to work with you and Dante and Evie and just people from all over the world. Just yeah, life changing for sure.
Very cool. Well, the reason that I thought you would be great on this episode, beside being, I don't know, what do I call you? Mentor seems weird, but you're my
You just call
my
me like bestie.
you're my
Bestie's
best friend. You're my best balloon friend. But I did want to talk about something specific, which is your kind of how you structured your business to kind of be by yourself. Like, you're a lot like me. I've modeled my business a lot after you. You still work a full-time job. You do balloons as like a lucrative side business. But just because you work alone doesn't mean you are always by yourself. And I feel like that's something that I am just now getting into in terms of hiring people to help me for certain occasions. But I feel like people go from being by themselves to wanting to have help, but they don't know how. And that doesn't necessarily mean bringing on a staff immediately. So we have worked together. You have hired me to work for you on large jobs. You've employed family members. So I just want to talk about how you can get some help without necessarily having employees.
Yeah. So It's such a broad topic because there are lots of jobs throughout the year where having employees would be super helpful, and I have a lot of friends in the industry that have lots of employees, and sometimes I get super jealous at seeing a lot of the friends that have the employees that do the work for them and everything. But I don't know. I'm just you said like side business, and I think that's a really good phrase because that's what I treat it as. It's definitely I would never refer to it as a side hustle or just an extra way of making money because it takes up a lot of time. As it's a full-time business. It's just something you do in addition to the other job that you do for
Right.
during the day. And and I kind of treated it as such. There's been a moment in life when I looked, down that path to decide whether I was going to become a full-time artist, a full-time balloon decorator, or if I was going to continue to do what I studied in college and what I do during the day. So I feel like from a balloon perspective, I'd like to keep the business where it is as the side business and still focus on my day job because I think in order to make the amount of money I make during the day doing balloons, it would take balloons almost from something that I really enjoy doing to something that isn't as enjoyable when I'd have to work so much harder at it. As weird as that might sound, so I'm happy with where the balloon business is. But let's talk about when you would hire help. Every so often I have event planners that need large quantities of balloons. And they have large budgets, and whenever that type of budget comes into the picture, is usually when I'll hire somebody like yourself or or some of our other friends. Luckily, in Chicago, I have a lot of friends that are decorators that are willing to be open to working for me for like a weekend or for a couple days. And so, depending on the job, if a client needs, let's say, they need like 50 columns, or in one situation, I think I hired you out for a job that had what? I mean, how many snowmen? What was that
Oh yeah,
job?
I mean, it had to have been 50.
No, I think it was more like 80.
It was,
80.
yeah.
Yeah, it was nuts. I think we had like 80 snowmen that we had to build. I mean, I'd already done most of the building before we got to the install site, but getting everything assembled and unbagged and in place and stuff. So every job is just different and it dictates a different need. I'll reflect back on one of my very first big decor jobs. We were installing eight 16-foot tall candy canes in the Discovery World Museum in downtown Milwaukee. They had a really unique walkway when you walked in, and the event planner had this vision where when you walked into this hallway, you were greeted with these just monstrous candy canes wrapped in balloons. And also, not only did you get the visual of these 16-foot tall balloon candy canes, but you were hit with the smell of peppermint oil that they had in warmers. So it's like not only did you see the candy canes, but you smelled, almost tasted it. It was almost an immersive experience as you walked into this museum welcoming you to this company's holiday party. And a 16-foot tall candy cane is not something you can just put together on like monofilament or anything. That involved building out framework that I'd never built, bases I'd never built. It involves I think on that job I had 7 or 8 sets of hands because we had to get in at like 8 p.m. after the museum closed, and we had to be out by like 8 a.m. the next morning. So it was kind of like one of those all night jobs where we all had to work through the night to get everything done. And there's just no way, for me to be able to have done that job by myself. And typically that is the ultimate deciding factor is how I decide when I need to hire somebody or not is if I think that I can get it done by myself in the amount of time that I have, then I'll go for it. I'll do it if need be. But on the flip side, these budgets that I'm working with these event planners usually are large enough that when I'm pricing out the job, understanding their potential needs for having a short delivery installation window, that I'll incorporate money for hiring other people into the cost. So anytime an event planner is like saying they need basically if the budget is well over the several thousands up into the 10,000s range, then I know I'm going to have to factor in the cost of potentially hiring friends
Yeah.
or relatives.
I just did a job yesterday actually where I don't know what I was thinking. I was going to do it by myself, but it was 5 30-foot arches. And if it had been inside, I probably would have, but it was outside on a football field where we had to like bring in the bases and the sandbags and all. And I just realized, like, strength wise, I just wasn't going to be able to do it. So I finally roped in my husband like the day before.
Yeah.
Um, but like same thing too. Like I'll go for it if I think if it's just inflating a lot of balloons, I can do that. But if it's strength and timing and like physically whatever you're making isn't going to fit in any U-Haul that you rent, like you need extra help inflating on site. That's when I look for extra help.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like last weekend, I had to do an install where we installed 20 10-foot, well, they were 13-foot arches with the 3-foot topper. So 20, not arches, I'm sorry, columns. And every column had a 50-pound base. Uh,
Mhm.
and and so literally I'm driving U-Haul truck, and my nephew is like on the back of the truck pulling a base off, setting it down. We're pulling out the poles, we're putting the toppers on it. I mean, that job, I think he and I, just installing those 20 columns, it took us, the better part of an hour to hour and 15 minutes. But had I been by myself, because there were several bases that had to be delivered to areas where the truck couldn't go, I mean, it would have taken me like 4 to 5 hours. It would have
Yeah.
been atrocious. And then the cleanup part of it would have been way worse. Popping all those balloons and and picking up all those bases and man, I just know, yeah, no, I would rather have somebody there that I'm paying, to help and stuff. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
and the other thing that I think I learned too late is to be really upfront about what you need from the organizer standpoint. Like I told this woman, it was for a college. So I just said, like, do you have students that can help me load up at 9 o'clock at night? Cause like knowing that getting all the stuff back into the truck and we could just jam it in there. I didn't have to worry about, balloons popping or anything. And she said yes. And they got a golf cart and they carried all those bases. They carried all the arches, everything up and loaded it in my van for me. So I think just asking for what you need, which I am now 7 years in and I'm just starting to do that because I thought it would make me look unprofessional or something. But a lot of times these corporate clients, they have the resources and they have the volunteers and they have help. Especially college campuses. I've gotten very comfortable at asking for extra extra sets of hands to load up after the event.
That's awesome. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's nothing better than having, while you're striking a job, having groups of people, either employees or, volunteers, loading up all your bases for you. It's like you feel so bad, but you're like, thank God.
Yes. Well, I know. I was like, whatever. These are college boys. They each had to put 2 sandbags in the van versus me putting 20. Like I would have died.
No, for sure. Exactly.
Like it's my CrossFit. Okay, so when you do decide that you need to hire people, or just because I know you typically go the route of either hiring your nephews to work for you, or you go the route of hiring other balloon companies. So those are very different options. When do you opt for balloon professionals?
So I typically opt for balloon professionals when a segment of the job's going to involve building on site, when I need someone that has the experience and knowledge to build what I need to have built.
Hmm.
So, like case in point, one of the Christmas jobs I hired you on a few years back, I had you and Robin Veach and Lisa. Lisa was there with us, I believe,
Yep.
from a beautiful creation, I think, is her company in Chicago. Uh, who else? Who else was there? You, me, Lisa, and
Your
I think
your
was
friend
that.
Mike.
Oh yeah, Mike. Mike was there. Yeah, yeah. Mike Buccelli. He had one of his employees there. So to break down that build, which was comical because from a high level overview, the total build had a budget of, I think it was like $17,000. That was the budget for me, and in that budget included, we had to build like I think 16-foot tall Christmas trees, and we did a bunch of those candy canes, and then also you helped build how many of those columns with the toppers? They were organic Christmas
Yeah,
columns.
we did a lot
You
of
you had to
those.
do like 16 to 18 or 20 of those. So and then Mike, to talk about Mike, Mike is one of my best friends. He's a contractor. He's a general contractor. So he's great with conduit. He's great with bases, the technical side of it. So I'll bring him on when in that situation we had, I think, roughly like 40 to 50, things that needed some sort of technical touch on it. Like you were building the columns. Lisa and Robin were building the centerpieces and while Mike was doing the bases that we put together for like the Christmas trees and stuff. So yeah. So really, the only time I'll bring in like real professional balloon people is when there needs to be some sort of construction on site, and not really much in regards of just needing hands. You need somebody that has that experience and knowledge. And thankfully, I have a group of friends like yourself, and Lisa Talip, and Robin Veach, and just, I mean, there's so many people in Chicago, right? Tommy, De Lorenzo, and Scott. They're good friends. If ever was needed, I mean, we can help each other. I mean, it's great to have the network locally, that I can call on. I'm very blessed to have great friends that do what I do in the area.
Okay, let's take a sidebar on this, because I feel like a lot of people are afraid to work with other balloon decorators because they view them as competition, or like maybe they're going to steal your client. Like, what's your take on that? What's your opinion?
If I feel like anybody that I bring on a job site is going to go out and steal my client, I just, those aren't people that I would work with. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, honestly, like when I'm working my jobs, every big job is going to be in my opinion, a lifelong experience, something that you'll remember and look back on, and you'll talk about that build with your friends and this build and stuff. And whenever I do a job like that, I want that memory to be filled with people that I love and I love working with. So those are the people that I pick to work with on my jobs, because I want those jobs to be fun. I always try and build in, after the build's over, like a dinner or drinks or something. I always try and make it fun and enjoyable, to celebrate the build. That's kind of my goal. So I don't think I would ever hire somebody, and I don't really know of too many people in this area that I know of that would really go out just out of the way to steal a client. But I don't know. And also, there's a whole different argument or discussion we had about that, because my event planners and my clients, they may meet somebody local, or they may meet somebody. Good luck to the other person trying to encroach on my business, because what I do is unique, and there aren't many people that can do what I do. And my clients appreciate, my creativity and what I bring to the job. So, outside of, me failing epically and possibly losing a client, that's fine. But I'm not worried about anybody stealing my clients. There aren't many people that can do what I do. So,
Yeah. Also, like,
yeah.
I always think, like, what would that conversation actually look like? Some other balloon person approaches a client and is like, "Hey, I'll do it for less." As the client, wouldn't you be like, "This is weird. Who are you?" Like, wouldn't that be really off-putting?
I think so. I think so as well. And it's funny, a lot, as a lot of my business, oddly enough, happens to be up in like the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, which is your neck of the woods and stuff. And we joke about my clients up there and how you've grown your business, and and my clients have used you, in certain situations, and I have no problem with it. I'm busy enough. I'm not super stalkerish when it comes to my customers, and if they feel like they want to reach out to somebody else for jobs, and good for them. I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not upset about that, but I've never really lost a client to another professional. So I can't really relate, but I sure as hell wouldn't be working with somebody if I knew that they had any ounce of their soul that would ever want them to go after somebody else's client. Those aren't the people I associate with.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to put you on the spot here, but I think this is the $1 million question, and we can talk about it. But how do you pay? What do you pay people? Like, I think that is the biggest factor. Like, you don't want to hire someone and then pay them an insulting fee, but at the same time, you can't pay them $100 an hour. Like,
Yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
think is fair when you're hiring another decorator?
Yeah, so that's a really tough question, and I don't think there's not even really a one generic answer. I don't pay X dollars an hour, and quite honestly, I'm probably the worst person to ask from this
I know you pay a
standpoint.
lot. You're
I pay a
really
lot.
generous.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that if my friends are going out of their way, like for some of those builds that have been up in Milwaukee and up in Wisconsin, when I have my friends coming from, like Lisa Talbot will come up from like Aurora, which she'll drive like 3 hours out of her way to help me on a build. So I'm going to compensate her, not an hourly rate. I'm going to pay her essentially a day's rate worth of pay. And I try and I overpay. I always try and build it in my budget for quoting to pay the people that I'm hiring for those jobs very well, because I don't want to be known as a cheap person. I'd rather make less money myself, as horrible as that sounds, and pay my staff more, but I'm making all the other money on the back end. There's a lot more, on those events that I'll make. But yeah, it's tough. But with my nephews, when I'm bringing them on jobs, on average, I pay them, right around 20, 25 an hour,
Okay.
depending on the job. Same for like the technical guys, roughly in that rate. But when it comes to hiring other professionals, if I bring on a job and you're going to be working for like, let's say like 4 to 5 to 6 hours, I'm paying you probably around $600 or $700, 500, 600. Just once again, it depends on when and where and what. So,
Well, and I think for people who are listening, like these are, like you said, like $15,000 jobs. So things that you can't do yourself, things that you're really needing that skill. Because I don't want someone listening to be like, oh my gosh, I have to pay my employees $500 a day. But
no,
but
no,
no, I
not at
agree,
all.
because a lot of these jobs too, like you said, they're far away, or if it's like on a Saturday, you have to assume they're maybe losing out on other jobs that they would take. But I personally love working for you. Like I find it really enjoyable to be on a job where like I don't really have to do the problem solving. I didn't have to order, I didn't have to plan, I didn't have to do any of the communication. Like to make money doing that sometimes is a bit of a, it feels like a little vacation, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's great. It's fun. I'll never forget. There was one job that I brought you on, and I think it was the job where we did those. Maybe I don't remember. They all get mixed together. I don't know if you remember the one we did, like the 80. It was like an 80 or 90 foot linear arch, and we were hanging the arch over the bar.
That was the
And
same one with Robin and Lisa.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, so the client. This is the client's one. They said this client, they always have this. It's like a 50-foot bar, and they want this arch, an organic holiday arch over the bar. And I was like, a 50-foot bar, and we're gonna do an arch over a bar. This thing's gonna have to be and the height of it was gonna be like 40 feet high. They're like, we want this to be the first thing you see when you walk in here. Can you do like an arch that's like 40 feet high, 50 feet wide? And I'm like, sure, let's do it. I've never seen it done.
Just
I've
like
never
100-foot arch.
Yeah, it was bananas. I was like, yeah, no problem, let's do it. And I think that's what is fun about these jobs. And I never done it, and it was an experience for sure. But as it was getting hung, I mean, if you recall, there were like multiple epic failures that were caused by a rigging guy that just didn't like us for some
Oh,
reason.
he was so mean. Rigging people are so freaking mean. I don't know why.
He was super not happy. I think the issue there was that I didn't have a strong enough monofilament for the attachment points, and so he kept trying to hang it with my, like, I think I had like maybe 20 pound or 30 pound test line or something like that, and he kept hanging it with mine, and he's like, this isn't gonna work. It kept snapping, and he's like, fine, I'll use this 500 pound wire that I have sitting by my feet that I could have used the whole time, that I was just
I know, like
sitting
he was like hiding it, like he was waiting for like the grand reveal so he could like show us how cool he was.
be the hero. You have wire at your feet. You could have wired it instead of using my teensy fishing string.
That actually though, I remember that moment because it was right when dinner got there. And I was like, you know what? I am not good at these situations. I'm going to have a heart attack, but also, this isn't my job. I don't have to solve this problem. I'm just going to walk away because I'm going to be no help because I'm so stressed out right now. That's the best part when you're working on someone else's crew. You can be like, this is not a problem for me to solve because I'm just going to have a heart attack. So I'm going to remove myself
Yeah,
and
yeah.
leave.
Yeah, exactly. And there was moments there with that arch. I mean, I've never seen it done. I'm sure it's been done before, but I've never seen such a long arch done. And I just, there was a moment where I thought, this just isn't going to work. It's not going to happen. But thankfully it did, and the client loved it. And it wasn't quite what I had envisioned, but it actually ended up looking cooler, because it had a bit more of an organic-y shape to the organic arch, because it wasn't a perfect, like when you set up an arch, like when you did those arches yesterday or today or whatever. An arch shows at that perfect kind of half circle. So that actually, because it was so long, had a little bit of a wavy to it, but it turned out great, and it worked out. And but that scary moment was better because you were there, and Robin was there, and Lisa was there. It made it that much more fun because I think we laughed, you know, harder than I've laughed in a long time on a decor job.
Oh my gosh. I was crying. You thought I was laughing, but they were tears.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do these crazy jobs fearlessly, and I'm just like every arch. I'm like, what if it blows over? And you're doing 100-foot arch. You're like, it'll be fine.
Well, it's comical because I mean, I can think, I mean, of all the decor jobs that I've ever done, I mean, it's always worked out. It always works out. There, you have to be able to adapt and overcome and I guess change direction. I mean, I think the worst thing that's ever happened to me on a decor job is I ran out of helium. Like 100 helium balloons short. Like, and then you just adapt and you change the direction. You do something different.
Yeah.
I mean, it can never be bad. But I keep pushing the limit, and one of these days I'm gonna fail, and it's bound to happen. I know it's going to, but until then, we'll just enjoy the ride.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and then we will come back. And I want to talk about a little bit more about how you hire your nephews, about inflating, because that I think is going to be my next move. I'm not sure. It's a new idea I have to hire an inflator, but I know you use your nephews to do that. So let's take a quick break and hear from a sponsor, and then we'll be right back.
Did you build your website from the ground up? Are you trying to figure out where to go from here to attract more visitors and to convert more of those visitors into sales? Hi, I'm Jeff at Asset Lab, and I'd love to help. We can provide a website consultation that gives you the exact steps we would take if you were coming to us for a full-scale improvement project, and you'll be able to take it on yourself. Pause this episode and send me a text at 206-488-1871 to let me know you would like some help.
All right, welcome back. Thank you for all of this input so far. It is making hiring people seem less scary, more doable. But I know you work with your nephews a lot. And how old are they?
My youngest nephew is 19 right now. He's going to be turning 20 soon. And then my second youngest nephew was the one that worked with me all summer this summer, and he's 21. And then I've got an older nephew that is almost 23, 22.
But you have been using them to inflate balloons since that Christmas job, which has to have been 5 years ago.
Yeah, they've been working for me since they were like young teenagers, in their 13, 14, I think is when I started having them come over, and they absolutely loved it. It was funny back then. I could set them in front of a machine and inflate, and they would just keep going, and you could give them $20 each and they'd be super excited, you know. But now I obviously pay them a lot more, because they've had a taste of real world money and everything. But you know what I used to use them for in the very beginning is twisters hate to rubber band their balloons. And what I would do is I would get a balloon order, a box, and I would send it over to my brother's house. And I would say, you guys band these balloons. And they would sit at home and they would just band balloons for me. And I'd get a box of band balloons back. And, I'd pay them for that as well. But, I don't pay them like $1 a bag, so it was pretty cheap, and it saved me from, working for a couple days to band balloons. So yeah, they're great.
So do they, I mean, I know now they do more. Like you already mentioned, the one came on site and he was kind of the muscle and helped you move things around. Just extra hands is so important. But I'm wondering if you can help me think out loud here as I look towards hiring a part-time inflator. I don't have family close. I don't have anyone that I can just like bring in. So I'm looking to hire a local person to help me inflate. Do you have any like strategy? Do you write things down? Do you have recipes? Do you just tell them? Like, what does this look like?
Yeah. Yeah. So during the first part of the pandemic, when yard art became a really big thing, that was when I had finally, officially hired my nephew, my youngest nephew, Tristan. He would come to my house every morning, around 9 o'clock. And to start the day, we would start off with like a 15 to 30 minute session going over the job list for the day. And in that situation, I would write down the jobs for the day. I'd say today we've got 5 jobs, and we'd go through each job. This one is 2 large numbers. It also has like 2 fireworks and happy birthday message, whatever. And throughout the time I train them, how many balloons we'd need to inflate for each specific balloon or each frame, as well as he'd understood how many balloons on the fireworks. And once we went through the jobs for the day and we pulled the balloons, he would be off and running, and he'd work for between 4 and 8 hours every day. Now, when that setup was going, I paid him a flat rate of $15 an hour, which for at the time he was still in high school. I think he was 16/17, and I mean, 15 an hour for somebody of that age, is great, because all summer long he would just come to my house in the morning, build for, for part of the day, and then go home. And he was making way more money than he could working at McDonald's or, or some other fast food place. So,
Yeah.
it was great. It was wonderful. And I'll tell you, with that yard, the yard installations, when that at the very beginning of the pandemic, when people were not socializing at all, and we were doing between, let's say, 2 to 6 or 7 of those installs every single day, it was so amazing to just set them up going for the day, and then at the end of the day, everything was done, and then I would start delivering at night and striking the jobs and installing, and to not have to do the inflation, it was amazing. I would
Yeah.
recommend it. And I think from your perspective, if you were to hire somebody, you could pay them. I think 15 an hour is generous for what they're doing, in my opinion. But I know you were mentioning earlier the idea of charging per foot, which
Yeah, so this is an idea that I got from my friend Tiffany. She's Confetti Castle, and I mean, crazy smart. Like she's so smart, and she has this big business, but she also I'm pretty sure she has an MBA. Like she's smart, book smart, and she was the one who had this conversation about how she started paying her inflators by the foot because she does a lot of organic, but it would totally work for classic as well. So if you think about it, basically 4 balloons is a foot linear. So if you're doing a 20-foot arch, like a standard arch, it's $20, which if they get fast at inflating, I mean, you could do that in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, like if you know exactly what you're doing. I timed myself the other day and it took me 7 minutes to do a bag of 100. So into duplets. So really I like that take because it incentivizes inflators to go really fast and be efficient versus, if they're clunking around and taking their time and they say it took them 2 hours to inflate an arch. You're kind of like, well, why? Why did it take you that long? So yeah, I haven't done anything yet. I'm messaging someone on Instagram that I think would be a good fit, and I'll try it out. I'll update the podcast on that for sure. But I think when I started, there was no other version of hiring an employee other than like hourly or salaried. Like I didn't know there was this flexibility, or it could be for like a one-off job, like you often do. You hire people one time just as like a contractor.
yeah, exactly. But when you think about it, if you have somebody coming over consistently, if you're able to find like maybe a mother, a mom that maybe is no longer a stay-at-home mom that has some flexibility during the day. I mean, to have somebody to come over to do inflation for you if you're booking jobs every single day is amazing. And even when they might not have inflation to do, just to organize something or clean up something or get the spare balloons back in their containers, like that, having that person there is invaluable, especially when you're paying a fair rate for it. I highly recommend it. That summer when my nephew was here, throughout the summer, not only was I able to, take the burden off myself doing all the production, but also I was able to keep my nephew fully employed and making money. And the middle nephew worked for me this summer doing that same thing, learning and training and understanding the balloon business. And now my youngest nephew lives down in Bloomington, Illinois, which is about 2.5 hours south, and he's starting his own balloon business down there off of what he learned working with
That's
me for the
awesome.
summer. So it's great. Now he wants to know if we can expand my business into Central Illinois, incredibly twisted balloons in Central Illinois. I'm like, no, let's just get you set up doing your own thing, and I'll take a 25% royalty on everything. I'm just kidding. I would, I'm just kidding. But no, it's great. It's wonderful. If you have family, that's, in my opinion, if you stand your family, or if you can stand your family, that's the easiest way. If you don't have family, then try and make friends that are looking for jobs and
Yeah.
see if they would have an interest. If you can find that one person, as long as they're happy doing it with you and somebody you enjoy spending time with, then do it. It'll take the
Yeah,
burden.
especially now that I have this storefront type of studio that's connected to my home but has a private entrance and a key code on there. I have this vision of like training someone to come in, jobs are laid out, balloons are pulled, they inflate everything, and then I get home and magically everything is ready to go. Like I'm not even going to start with like stacking. It will just be bags of balloons that then I put together into whatever they need to be. Just the time that would save, I think I'm ready to get to that point. I mean, there were a lot of years where it didn't make sense. Like I wasn't making that much and every dollar counted and every dollar mattered. But now I'm in that phase where I'm ready for the luxury of, of not having to do everything.
Yeah, yeah, and that you have a different situation there though, because I think having them just inflate balloons is a good idea, and not necessarily teaching stacking and too much, because essentially then you'd be training somebody that could potentially steal business. I think that
Exactly.
would
And
be a
that's what I am a little worried about.
yeah, that's a I mean that's a tough situation, but hopefully you're working with somebody. Once again, this goes back to really enjoying who you work with. So I think it's really not a matter of finding a body to do the work, but finding somebody that is going to be around, that you're going to be spending time with, that you envision wanting to spend your time with that person, and hopefully it's somebody that you can trust.
Yeah.
But in all business, you're always going to train somebody that's going to learn something that could go do it elsewhere, or
Well,
on their own.
and I didn't like, if anyone's listening, and again, I don't know how this is going to work out. Like, this might turn into nothing, but I I didn't do a job posting. I didn't like do anything formal. There's just this girl who has always followed me on Instagram. Then she started following on the Bright Balloon account. So she like listens to the podcast. She's just like, she's into what I'm doing. And at first I was like, oh, she's gonna start a business. Like she's gonna be my competition. But she hasn't. And she works at a coffee shop, and Zach works at the coffee shop, and I work at that coffee shop sometimes. And independently, we have both come home and been like, man, that girl at the coffee shop is so freaking good at her job. Like, she talks to everybody, she knows everybody's name. She's just one of those people that you're like, I give her a job. I don't know doing what, but like, she's just so good at being, around people. So I feel like if she wants to inflate, that would be awesome. But also I could see her growing into more than that. Like, she is someone that is just so good at what she does. That's how I found her. And I messaged her and I was like, hey, would you ever want part-time, very flexible hours? And she was like, yep, when do you want to meet? So that's my real-time update. It might turn into not a good situation. I don't know. But I did not do any job posting. I did not come up with a job description or anything. I just found someone that I thought was like really impressive. And that's how I'm going.
I mean, it sounds like you found a bit of a unicorn. I mean, if she's young and excited and wants to learn and seems to be like somebody that is good dealing with clients, yeah, start her out inflating. But God, it sounds like that's somebody that you want doing a lot of the work and maybe client facing and stuff for you. I
Exactly.
mean, yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing. That it it would take somebody like that. I think you and I talked about when we were at Balloon Wonderland how we met some of Dante's staff. And Dante had a young man there that was working with him. Kevin was his name,
Yeah.
and Kevin was basically what was Kevin? Was he like basically Dante's manager of his balloon business, or
I don't know what his actual title is. Like, I mean, if I had to put a label on him, I maybe like production manager. Like,
yeah, production
he
manager.
knew how to do everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And Kevin was young and
And a
super
hard worker,
hard
like just
worker. Yeah.
really, really
Exactly.
easy to work
Exactly.
with.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like it's funny because Kevin was very young, and my nephew. It's funny, like my nephew Alex, who just went back to school. I'm missing him now because I worked with him all summer. Alex, I want Alex to be my Kevin. But Alex is going to college to be a athletic trainer, and he's got his aspirations in life. He enjoys the balloons, and he's I've seen him show passion towards it. But I don't want him to do that for a living. I want him to be the athletic trainer and all that stuff. But he, Alex was asking me like a week ago, it's like, what's preventing us from growing this business and really building it up and stuff. And I was like, well, I think it's where I want it to be right now. In order for it to go somewhere beyond that, I need you, essentially. And
Yeah.
you're not available right now. You're going off to college, and I said, if when you all's done and you got your athletic training, you want to do something more with this business, come back to me and we can maybe build it more. So
But I
yeah.
like that too, because I know a lot of people, because I have always been kind of the voice of like, you can keep your business small. That's fine. You can just be yourself. That's fine. Or you can grow like a David Mahoney level $1 million business with all these employees. I personally have zero desire to do that. Like, I hate
Exactly.
managing people. I manage people at my day job. The last thing I want to do is create that for myself in my balloon business. Like, this is my little source of joy. So I like that you said, like, you're happy with your business where it is. I feel like there's always this constant, like, what's next and how do we grow and who do we hire this time? And it's like, it's okay to get to a point where you're just satisfied, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And there was this moment, and you were in this moment. I don't know if you remember the very first workshop that we did in Chicago for the Tommy and Scott for the Pride Parade, the parade, profits promotions. What was that called?
Yeah, parade. I think parades, profits, and promotions.
Yeah, that was Joette's first. I think that was what is now her. What's the event that you're teaching at? I forget.
Summit. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
the
kind of
Summit, yeah,
evolved. Now
yeah.
Summit's all business focused.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was, I think, the original summit. That's what the summit eventually turned into, was that workshop. But I was on the panel, and I'll never forget the moment. Carolyn Heyman was sitting right next to me, and the rest of the panel were all full-time balloon professionals. And there was a stigma that people kept saying that you weren't a real balloon business unless you did it full-time and you didn't have another job. And I was kind of insulted by it. I think it's very possible to have a full-time, very profitable, very productive balloon business and have another job. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it as a side business at all. And I think it's shameful for people in our industry to make anyone feel bad that they don't have a storefront, that they don't have 5 trucks, that they don't have 5 employees. There's this stigma that you have to have all that to be deemed successful. I know a lot of people that have that, and they don't make any money because they're paying so much, overhead, and they have way more stress. And I don't have any of that, and I probably am more profitable. Um, can you still hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, my apologies. I just got an alert. But I don't have any of that, and I make a lot of money doing balloons, and I'm happy, and there's no stress. I don't know. I've whatever. I think you know what I'm saying. It's just
No, I totally agree.
okay.
That's
Okay.
what I preach all the time. And Joette preaches that too, which I think is awesome about Summit. Like that's why I love Summit, because there are people there with like 5 trucks, and then there's people there who are just starting out, and like Joette talks about this all the time. Like there are multiple people that their entire goal running their balloon business is to like take their family on vacation once a year. Like it could be like you have a balloon business and you make $1,000 a month, and that's your family vacation fund, and that for you is amazing. Because like how many other people can say they do that? Hardly any. Like it's that's something to be proud of, that you have any sort of side income to do anything with. And eventually mine grew to be more than my full-time job, but I still work my full-time job because I enjoy it. So I love this industry because I think it really can be whatever you want it to be.
Exactly. Yeah, that's perfectly put.
Well, great. Well, let's wrap it up. This was wonderful. I have a squirmy puppy on my lap who's wanting to get down. So that's my sign that it's probably time to go. But thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
Well, my website's incrediblytwisted.com. That's one way. I'm on the Instagram. Is it the Instagram? What do you kids call it nowadays? God, my only
You're
one's
on
drinking.
Instagram. You're posting more. I appreciate it. You
I
guys,
know.
Dennis. Okay, so Dennis, I don't know if you listen to all the podcast episodes. Probably not. But I have a love-hate relationship with Instagram. I obviously use it a lot, but I also hate it equally as much. But you guys, Dennis is like my spirit animal when it comes to Instagram, because one time he was hacked, and whoever this hacker was like posting imitation Ray-Ban sunglasses, and Dennis like didn't even care. He didn't even get to worrying about it for like a month. He was like, yeah, whatever.
And for those of you that don't know, my Chinese knockoff Ray-Ban website is ChineseRaybans.com.
Oh, so funny. Or
Um,
you'll just change the other day I was looking at your bio. I was like, you need to update this, and you updated it to something like hysterical, but it was just like public. He doesn't care. This man doesn't need to promote
no,
himself, which is
it,
awesome.
it is absolutely horrible. And everyone asks, I'm so bad throughout the pandemic. I have not done much from a self promotion standpoint, but I don't need to promote myself. I'm busy. I'm more busy than I want and need to be. So, but I am on Instagram. It's just Instagram.com. My username is Dennis Scott. Literally just Dennis Scott.
You don't have to say Instagram.com.
I don't know. I don't know how you kids use these crazy tools.
It's on the phone.
All right. Yeah. So you can find me with Mr. T. It's my profile picture on Instagram, and then I'm also on Facebook, and you can call me.
Oh yeah, your profile it's a picture of Dennis with Mr. T
With
holding
Mr.
one
T.
of his balloons, like
Yeah.
the actual Mr. T.
Me, Mr. T. Yeah, he's the sweetest man I've ever met. Nicest guy. It was funny because usually when I'm around celebrities, you always want to get your picture with a celebrity. Well, Mr. T wanted his picture with me because he loved balloons and he thought it was awesome, all the stuff that I was making. And he asked me to make him a gold chain, and that is a bucket list item crossed off.
That's amazing. Well,
Yes, yeah, super cool. But thanks for having me. Really, really
thank you,
appreciate it.
Dennis.
Yeah, you're awesome, Sarah.
My balloon best friend.
That's
Thanks for being on finally.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, not for your 100th episode, but whatever. I still have it. Yeah.
Knock it off.
Thanks for joining me in this week's episode. As usual, I tried to keep it bright and light in a few minutes or less. If you wish there were more episodes, you are in luck. You can join us in our Patreon group for our monthly book club. I record weekly episodes guiding you through a different self-development book each month. For as little as $3 a month, you can join more than 50 other balloon business owners in our private group. Click the link in the show notes to join us.